Okay, today I'm gonna create a to-do application using React to combine all the functions and the concepts we have learned from previous classes. So first we can just review the example we have created from last class. It is a Hello React page, right? So in terms of this to do app, the family. And now I have a static page. The family to do app looks like something like this. I open this in the Chrome. Yeah, something like this. You can add a new to do here and check or check if this to do item is done. You check it, and there's a delete button. There is a counting status bar, and this is a delete all button, right? So this is what it actually looks like. So now we just convert this this example, this application to do into a to-do app. So first, what we want to do, we need to split static pages and the CSS files into components because we are talking about React, so I won't just write the static page at the beginning. So I have already prepared this. So I just open this and open this. So as you can see, first we need to split the static page into components logically. So basically what we do, we just split the component by the element tag. Suppose there is an input, we just call it this is a header, and maybe this is the footer component, and there is a list, and the list contains a lot of items. Each item is a to-do item, right? So how do we do that? First, we don't need this hello and welcome component anymore. Instead, we have a header, we have footer, we have list, we have atom. So in the header, we have index.js. So we need to import React from React, and we need to import .index.css. We need to export this component default class header extends react.component render return header. We also need a CSS file for this component. Now we'll copy this to all components. So this is footer header item list. Right, so in this root component, we don't need this anymore. So header footer list. Yep, now it works, right? So we have add all those components into the root component, which is app component, right? So based on this, let's take a look at this. So static page, we have a header, we have footer, right? And there is a unsorted list, so which is the list component, contents atom, which is list atom component, right? So now we just come to the components header, we have CSS file, so header, we copy it here, we also copy the CSS configuration to the header component back to the page, right? As you can see, there is input field. Now for the moment, I just ignore this error message. We can fix this later. So another one is after header we have footer. So footer CSS, after footer we have atom list, so we just copy this unsorted list. List CSS. In this case, I call it as main because this is main area to display content, right? So copy it here. It says that style props expects a mapping, so it means that because we cannot just simply copy the HTML syntax into the JSX file based on what we have talked about. So I just close this CSS first. Yep. So in this case, class should be class name. Class. We don't need to hard code it anymore. It should be looped by JSX, right? So display none. Class name. Class name. Class name. Okay, no error message, right? So also we need to copy. This is the element for app for root component, right? So I just copied from here. So copy this and come to app. We also need to change this class to className. Right, so CSS, the base is the root component, right? So first we need to create app.css. Copy this app.css. Also, there is some atom. So in this list component, we should embed atom here, atom component. Of course, we need to import this. So in this atom file, we paste the list atom here, right? So atom CSS. Okay. Of course, after that, atom, we import this style. Yeah, as you can see, there are several atoms here, right? So still some styling is not applied yet. Please over filter list to do man. Yeah, we need to import in the app.css. Yep. As you can see here, all the styling stuff has already applied on our components, right? So it looks like what we want to do eventually. Now we come to this. So when we do this, we need to pay attention to class name and style syntax, right? So let's back to this page. So now I want to add some we want to make this, we want to give it a state to this component and make it display something meaningful instead of XXXX, right? So so I want to make the list displaying some state. right? So where should we put the state? Because this list, all the to-do items should be used by all components, including the header, the list component, and the footer. So I just put the state in the root component, which is app. So app.js so I'm gonna initialize a state, some state here, to-dos, which is an array. In this array we have object id, one, name, eating, and done, which is the status of this to-do item, right? So it should be either finished or not. So number two, number three, sleeping, and coding. So sleeping is done and coding is not finished yet. Of course. So if we want to display it, we need to pass a prop to the child component, right, to the list. So let's do to-dos is.state.todos. So from the list we have a prop here. We have prop, we need to traverse this prop. So this dot props dot todos dot map atom. We need to return something like item serve close, right? So let's change name to do instead of item. So in this way we can just get a prop from here. In the atom we can display something like this dot props dot to do dot name. What's wrong here? Can't read property name of on defense. So okay, so in the list we need to pass return item. Oh, okay, to do, right? Yep, eating, sleeping, and coding. Of course, each child need a unique key. Yeah, of course. So k dot, because we have ID, so we just use ID instead of index of this array because of diffing algorithm, right? So we have already talked about this before. Now there's no more error message and the things has displayed here. And of course in this atom we have a checkbox. So checked this dot props dot do done, right? As you can see here, so the finish to do item has already been checked, but there's an error message that you provide a check prop to a form field without an on-chain handler. This will render a read-only field. Read-only. So okay, click this. Yeah, it is not clickable. So if your field should be mutable, use defaultChecked. Let's follow this error message to change it to defaultChecked. Yeah. Click it. Yeah, mutable now, right? So now it works. So in this case, we make the list displaying states. we need to know the state position. When state is used by all components, place it in the common parent component or ancestor, common ancestor. When state is used by specific component, place it in the component in that specific component, right? So now we have already make the list displayable. So back to this, let's just go back to the header. So it says please input something and hit enter. It means that if you hit enter, a new to-do item will be added to the list. So add new to-do item from header component. Right? So means that we need to come to the header, and because it says that we add a new to-do item by hitting enter, so we need to give it an onKeyUp event, right? Not on click or something. We give it an onKeyUp. So this dot handle add new to do, right? Of course, we need a callback function. Handle add new to do. We have event. Pass the value back to our root or app component to update the state, right? So we have already talked about this, where when the parent component want to pass something to the child, we use props, right? So how do we pass? Because this header is a child component of app component, so how do we pass the value back from the child component back to our root component? It is fairly easy. We just simply use an callback function here. So first we're gonna display something is called target or value. See if we can get the input value here. Test. Yeah, we can get the value here, right? So so how do we pass this thing? Yeah, of course. So we need to monitor a KeyUp hit enter event, right? So how do we can, there is a attribute called event.keycode. So TEST, right? So the key code is the code when you press some specific key. So what if I press enter? It is 13, right? So it means that if event.keycode is not 13, return. If it is, we just create we just pass the value back to root component. In this case, we can either pass a value or to do object. So let's just do create a new to do here. So ID, I'll leave it empty for this moment. So name event or target or value, and done should be always false because this is a new to do, right? So why I leave this ID empty? Because this ID is not your driver license number or social insurance number, so we don't have to give something meaningful. So we can just generate a random number for this item, to-do item. So how do we can use a third-party library to generate a random number, which is called UUID. I think it's pretty popular. Every developer should have already know this. But in this case, we can use NanoID instead. So we can use them both, but NanoID is more lightweight compared to the UUID. In this case, I'm just come to this install NanoID. While it is installing, let's take a look at npm install NanoID. Right. So installing, right? So install NanoID. If you want to use this, simply import and use it this way. NanoID bracket is pretty straightforward, right? So back to this, yeah, we have already installed this successfully, seems like. So let's just copy this. Yep. So if you want to use it, we give it NanoID bracket. Right now we have a new to-do item, so we need to pass this back to. So how do we pass? We use a callback function. So prop.add to-do, right? We give a to-do object. So back to this, we need a add to-do object, and get the object from header input component and update the state. Right. So how do we add this to? We just add this to the object on top of the existing to-dos, right? So let new to-dos dot yeah, this is an array, right? So to-do object spread operator state dot to-dos, right? So this dot set state to-dos new to-dos, right? And then we need to pass this function to the child, to the header component. Add to-do equal to this dot add to-do. Yep. Let's take a look at this. Test. Enter. Yeah, new to-do item has been added. Yep. Check. On check, right? So but there is one thing, right? So when you add something, you press enter again. Oh, it's duplicated. So means that every time we input something, we should clear this, right? And plus that, other than that, if you press enter, yeah, empty string has been added to the. This is also wrong, right? So we should do a simple check, a string input check. So event dot target dot value dot trim is equal to empty, then it should return as well, right? So after the input, we should clear the input field. Right, so you cannot input input 3 anymore. So test it, what value is on defense. So event target, sorry. Okay, test. Yeah, it is cleared, right? You cannot input any empty string here. So yeah, of course. Now we know that how do we pass this, right? So we have already made this functional. Back to this readme file. Add new to-dos atom from header component by passing a callback function as a prop to child component, right? Add new to the item from header component by passing a callback function as a prop to child component. So this is the way we how do we pass the value from child component back to the root, right? So let's take a look at this. So now we have already made this header component functional, and now after this we want to add some simple styling on the list first. Suppose there is a delete button, and when we our mouse enter this atom or list atom, it should be styled, or it should be highlighted, and the button should be displayed here so that we can delete each atom, right? So okay, so add CSS style on the items. Okay. Okay, so we need to come this atom first. There is a list atom, right? So we wanna highlight this when mouse enter that list atom. So we need to create a mouse enter event. It's called handle mouse, right? So there is also should be something like on mouse leaf, right? Leaf is dot handle mouse. So when mouse enter, it should be true. When mouse leave, it should be false. But as you can see here, we have already talked about this before. You put a bracket here, and after this appending a bracket on this callback function, then the callback function will be called directly when the page load. So it means that we need to use higher order function to handle this, right? So handle mouse when mouse enter and leave, the item should be highlight. So of course this function will accept a flag, a boolean value. So we use higher order function to prevent this callback function execute right after the page load, right? So how do we do that? So we need to add a style here, style, right? So background color, it could be either true or false, right? So I can add a state called mouse. When the mouse is true, we give it a gray, or we give it a white. So there's no mouse. We need to initialize this state.mouse white. Right? So this dot set state mouse flag, right? Oh, not mouse. This dot state dot mouse, right? Yeah, as you can see here, right? So when you enter the mouse enter, the atom is highlighted, and in this case we have used a ternary operator, right? So of course, as you can see here, there is a delete button, right? It says still display, right? It should be this display. It should be this dot state dot mouse. Is it true? True block. False none. Okay, perfect, right? Okay, so add CSS then on the styles items. So in this case, we use a state inside of this item component. It means that when state is used by a specific component and place it in the component, right? So we have already talked about this. So we're also at the same time there is state, there is a callback handler near state. Okay, so you have state here, you need a like handler near the state, right? So instead of this atom component, instead of in the root component or other component, right? So back to this. So now we need to make this delete button functional, right? So when we click the delete button, it should be deleted, right? So now it's not functional. It's not functional yet. So let's back to the delete button. So we have we should on click this dot handle delete to do, right? Okay, delete to do, whatever. Okay. By the same logic, so we need handle delete to do, right? So we also need a callback function from the root component, because if you want to delete, you have no to do state inside of this item component, right? So you have to do it in the app root component. So pass, what should we pass? We should pass id back to root component, so that the root component recognize which component, which to do item should be deleted, right? So component to delete the to do item. So of course we need a ID here, so we need to pass ID here, not ID, should be this dot props dot to do dot ID, right? So yeah, so header function again, right? So this dot props dot delete to do ID. We don't have this delete to do method. We need to add this delete to do ID. So right here we can this dot state dot to do dot filter item, which item dot ID is not equal to ID, right? That's new to do's. This dot set state to do's new to do's. It looks quite right. Let's try this. Delete. Oh, we haven't passed this. Okay, so between the item component and root component, there is a list item, right? So, okay, so we need to pass this to list first. Delete to do this dot delete to do, right? And in the list, we need to pass this to item. So delete to do is equal to this dot props delete to do. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Delete works. Right. Now it's time we can mouse is white. Okay. Is false. Hey, I was thinking why it's always gray, it's always highlighted. I'm sorry, this is awkward, right? Okay, so let's take a look at this component to do. Now we have 3. We delete 1, 2, 1, 0. Right? Okay, no problem. Okay, so make delete button in the item component functional, right? So now we should head to the filter component, right? So there are 2 or 3 functions counting a status bar, a delete all buttons. Not delete all, is delete all done. Means all the finished to do items should be deleted, right? So okay, counting status bar, delete all done button and check all checkbox, right? So this is check all. This should be check all. When you check all those, when you check this, all the to-do items should be checked, right? Cool. Okay, so yeah, let's do this. So in this case, we need to come to the filter. First, we need to pass whatever we need to pass to-dos. This dot state dot to-dos to the filters anyway, right? So they need this state. So now we have total, which means this dot props dot to-dos dot length, right? Okay, we have done's, which means the item, the to-do we have already finished, right, in the total. So how do we get the done's? There is an API called reducer, which is a status monitor, a status how to say that, you just do the calculation, right? So this is API for a calculation. So this dot, we need to calculate how many dones, how many to do has finished in the all to do items, right? So props dot to dos dot reduce, and in this reduce there are two parameters. The first one is accumulator. I just use ACC, means accumulator, and the current value, right? I just use cur. So if current value done is true, accumulator +1, then final return, basically initial value is 0, right? The current value is to do object done. If it is done, yeah, okay. So done, this dot, not this, done means dones. All is total. Okay, back to this. Yeah. Oh, okay. So yeah, 2 after 3, right? So back to this. So let's do coding and movies. Okay, 4, 2 after 4, right? So it looks quite right. Yeah, and the delete all button, right? So this button is delete all dones. So we need on click .state handle delete all, right? Of course we need yeah, after the render, delete all. To do atoms, right? So we don't need to pass anything back to root component, right? So yeah, we don't need to pass that. So this dot props dot this one is handle delete all, right? So this one is delete all. Yeah, so back to the root component, we need a delete all. So how do we how do we get the get rid of those dones, those finished items, right? This dot state dot, there is API calls filter item, return the item dot done is not true, right? setState to-dos new to-dos. Okay, let's take a look. Delete all. Oh, we need to pass this. Delete all. This dot delete all. Cannot be added or removed during a reorder operation. Okay, let's take a look at this. So delete, throw at crumbs. Let's take a look at this. So it says that something has been added to Y. Oh, because the ID is same. Okay, so yep. Delete all dones, right? Delete all dones. If I click it, this checkbox is, we haven't configured this checkbox yet, so it doesn't work. So let us do change it here. True. Delete. Yeah, delete all. Right. So the last thing is the checkbox. Of course, when you click this, now it's all true. We check this, it should be all false, right? So we click this, it should be false, right? It doesn't work. So we just add the make this checkbox functional at last. The reason why I put this in the last step, because I want to show you something the attribute of default check and check. There is this is like a special point of React. Okay, anyway, just make this functional first, right? Let's go back to the list atom, and there is a checkbox, right? So yeah, now it's default checked, right? So we want to add our own change this dot handle select. So of course we need a handle select. What we want to do here, we want to change the value of done property for this to do item. If you want to change the value, right? If you want to change it, you need to get the ID, right? Whatever you need to get the ID, you need to know that which atom you want to change, right? Not ID. Should be this dot props dot to do dot ID, right? You can either say this the props dot to do the ID, or you can do this structure assignment here. You can get const like ID, and you can props, right? You can get ID here. But anyway, I just use this dot props. I think this looks more well, because the application is pretty small, so I don't need to do the structure assignment, right? So anyway, change the value of done products to the item. So this dot props dot select ID, right? Of course, so you need a select ID change item done property, right? So this dot state, you get this array. You want to do some data manipulation, which is atom, and if atom.id is equal to id, return if it is equal to id. So item.done should be item.done should be reversed, right? No, we need to return an ID, return an item. So, okay. So if it is equal to this ID, we need to return something like let to do this is dot 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 item, and item done property should be item dot done first, and then after this we return this to do, or we just return atom, right? So as you can see here, so in this case, so we use thread operator, we change the value of this done property, and we change it to the reverse value of the item.done, and then we return this atom, right? And otherwise, if this if the ID is not the ID, so we return the atom directly, right? So yeah, we pass this select to select dot equal to this dot select, and in the atom you need to pass this to atom. In the list you need to pass this to, so select dot equal to this dot props dot delete, not delete, select, right? Then finally you use select here, right? So let's do true true true, false, right? Should be false. Okay, so might be something wrong here. There's no error message, so but we failed. We failed. Okay. Reverse. True. Yo, we failed this part. Okay, we just get a check value directly, alright? So, okay. Right here in the atom, is besides the ID, we can give it a event dot target dot checked. Flag. The flag is event pass event oh, I see. Okay, we forgot this. So this should be return a header order function. This dot props dot select ID. item change value of done property for this to do item. Why this should be cool. So if the item ID is equal to ID, we return new item. We change the done value to reverse. Refresh this. Let's go back to item. Go back. List. True. It's not changed. Okay. Anyway, instead here, I just pass event.target.checked. Pass this value. Right? Handle select. Yep. So right here we don't need this. We can do flag. Reverse. I think there should be a typo here, not our function. Okay, anyway, so list select this select, we pass it to list this dot select this dot props dot select item this dot props false, true, false, true. No problems. So we have already get this value, but we haven't. Oh yeah, I know. We forgot set state. Okay, set state to do dot new to do's. Yeah, it works, right? Yeah. So yeah, we can use either use this value or simply just reverse the existing value, right? So it doesn't really matter. So in this case, you need to understand how we use separate spread operator here. We only change one value, one property of this atom. Yeah. So anyway, don't forget setState. Okay. So now, as you can see, all those three have already been checked, but this select or is not working, right? So we need to come to the footer and get this checkbox. And give it a checked value, and checked value should be true or false, right? So it depends on the done. So done is equal to total If it is, then true or false. Yeah, as you can see here, it works, right? So let's back to the console. As you can see here now, there is the same error message already right here. So you provide a checked prop to a format without an on-chain handler. This will render read-only field if the field should be mutable. As you click here, right? So it doesn't really, it's not works, right? So in this checkbox should check or uncheck all. So we give it we just give it a on. What was it again? On change, right? So okay, on change. This dot handle check all. Yeah, we need a handle check all. In this case, we need to know the current status of check all. It means that if the done is strictly equal to total or not, right? So we pass a Boolean value here called done's total. So whatever it is, we reverse that, right? So return this dot props dot check all flag. And back to the root component, there should be a check all flag, right? So in this case, we just set, we give it a let new to-dos this dot states dot map atom, make all atoms make all atoms reverse. I mean the flag, the reverse value of the flag, right? So so how do we return this? So let's give it a new to do atom done flag. Let return to do, and don't forget this set state to-dos new to-dos. Flag is the current check all checkbox value. It's all true. Pass this. It's called check all, right? So this dot check all. Yeah. It's all true. What's wrong here? Let's take a look at this. It says this dot stmap is not a function. Okay, this dot state to-dos. No error message. Check the value. False, true, false, right? So when we change this check all, why these three didn't change? Remember, because we assign a default check to this. So let's go back to atom, and there is a default here, right? Remember that? So because this is default, it only works for the first time when you load the page, and after that you can click that to change the value, but when you change the check all, it doesn't really work, right? So we still need to make it a checked, so it could be mutable once we click check all, right? So yeah, to-dos done, false, true, true, we should this we should, yeah, we don't need this. Okay, yeah, true, false, true, select all, select, right, delete. Oh, when you delete it, it's still checked. This is wrong, right? So we need to give it here. So footer, it's not only done is equal to total, at the same time the total is not equal to 0. Delete all, yeah, unchecked, right? Yeah, so let's back to this counting. So in this case, you need to tell the difference between checked or between checked and default checked, which is similar to value and default value, right? So the default value, default check, you can click that, but when you change the status of that, the default check didn't change because it only worked for the first time when you load the page, and each time when you use checked, you need to assign a handler on this checked, or otherwise it will never be clickable, right? So yeah, this is the we just, okay, right, this is a to-do app we have finished today, and using all those knowledge we have talked about from previous classes, and you need to have a very solid understanding before you go forward in our React tutorial, right? So just keep practicing this example again and again, and yeah, this is pretty much about the app using React today. Okay, bye bye.